There's no diplomatic way of saying it. Russia and the West are heading to war. Last week's US-led airstrikes on Syria infuriated Moscow. But last month, the West was equally enraged at the attempted assassination, using a nerve agent, of a former Russian spy in the UK. That incident caused farcical tit-for-tat expulsions of Russian and Western diplomats in nearly 30 countries. So far, no leaders are willing to blink or back down, but they do want to be heard. Vladimir Putin's man in Canberra, Ambassador Grigory Logvinov, warns Australia's blind support of his country's enemies is helping to put the whole world in danger. Russia surely has no prouder voice than Grigory Semenovich Logvinov, ambassador to Australia and ardent defender of the motherland. Thank you, Ambassador. Sit down, please. In the midst of this global crisis, the ambassador has broken away to grant me this private audience. Ambassador, at this time, with the world events as they're occurring, do you feel very, very far away here in Australia, or do you feel that we too live with the repercussions of what is going on in Syria today?
Well, we are moving towards the very dangerous brink, regrettably. If it would get to a conflict between US and Russia, it would be a global nuclear conflict. But it's not Russia's choice.
If the world is on the brink of war, then Syria is its flashpoint, where 2 weeks ago, Russian-backed dictator Bashar al-Assad attacked the town of Douma with chemical weapons. More than 40 men, women and children were killed, and the images of suffering galvanised the West.
If the Syrian regime uses this poisonous gas again, the United States is locked and loaded. When our president draws a red line, our president enforces the red line.
In response, the US, UK and France pounded Syrian chemical weapons facilities with airstrikes, despite Russia's threats to retaliate, and its claims there was no proof Assad had gassed his own people.
Who has authorized US, France and Great Britain? It's not rule of law, it's rule of power, which is, by the way, a blunt aggression against a sovereign country.
A blunt aggression that has been supported by many.
My gosh. You see, Hitler, fascist Germany had a lot of allies, and still it was aggression.
So
Don't you think about it?
So the fact that NATO has supported the strike,
yes,
the UN has supported the strike, the leaders of Europe and the Middle East have supported the strike, that doesn't count.
Thank you. What right they have to judge? And what for? We've created United Nations.
Right now, they're saying that these airstrikes were the right thing to do, that it was the only practical way to stop this chemical attack on the people of Syria.
Chemical attack first, which was not proved.
Our Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, has implored Russia to stop all the denials and pretense. That's a diplomatic way of saying stop lying, isn't it?
It's not a diplomatic way. I don't know how to describe it because, well, first of all, please present any evidence that Syrian government was using chemical weapons against its population.
Do you think that Bashar al-Assad is capable of poisoning his own people?
I don't think. And actually, Bashar al-Assad, he spent most of his life in the West. He was Western-oriented. And I don't know why he is that much hated in the West.
He's a mass murderer.
Mass murderer.
That's one reason.
My gosh. You see, once again, mass murderer.
Do you have any doubt that chemical weapons were used against the citizens of Syria?
How much proof do you need? How many points of corroboration do you need before you start believing that this is not a fabrication?
Professor John Blaxland, ANU's International Security Intelligence Specialist, says Russia will say and do anything to prop up the Assad regime.
There's a clear, cold-blooded calculus that's driving Russia's actions. Its motives, if you look at it, are clear. Their word is not to be trusted.
We cannot allow the use of chemical weapons to become normalised within Syria, on the streets of the UK, or anywhere else in our world.
Along with British Prime Minister Theresa May, the world was shocked a month before Syria by a chemical attack on UK soil. Former Russian double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia were targeted in the quiet town of Salisbury, where Skripal now lives. The would-be murder weapon is terrifying. Invisible and agonising, a deadly nerve agent called Novichok, created by the Soviet Union. In the eyes of the West, a classic Russian hit. But in classic Russian style, it's a blunt denial. Do you accept that Russia did make this nerve agent?
No. Regrettably, your mentality is also strongly formed by Hollywood movies portraying Russian special agents like morons who conduct such stupid things. My gosh, you see.
You get very personal, Ambassador, in your criticism.
I'm talking about your perception of Russia's special agents, and not a special agent. I'm an ambassador and career diplomat.
Yes, but what I'm saying is it makes good sense here, doesn't it? That you guys are known to make this agent. This is a Russian citizen, as you say, who for whatever reason has been targeted.
By whom? By who?
Well, the world is pointing the finger at you.
Yes, that's what we want, the whole real, reasonable, serious investigation, and not this fake stuff which was presented by the Brits. You see, I am feeling a bit sorry for US and Great Britain allies, because you are fed with such primitive and incompetent fake stuff, and you have to follow it and to believe in it, you see. I'm really sorry.
Thank you for your sympathy. In the Russian alternate reality, Ambassador Logvinov says he's worried about these Russian citizens, not because they've been poisoned, but because they've been kidnapped by the West.
Actually, you know what's happening? We call it kidnapping. It's kidnapping of a Russian citizen.
You're arguing, as suspects in the attempted murder of these people, that you should be given access to them.
Yes. Yes. First of all, we have to meet them.
You're suspected in trying to wipe them off this earth. Why should you have access to them?
It's interesting. We are suspected without any evidence, without anything.
Do you have any doubt that Russia was behind the poisoning of the Skripals?
To my mind, the evidence is compelling. Why? The Skripals were outspoken. They were helping the Brits. And this was something that, you know, the view would have been, hey, we've got away with this before, let's rub them out, let's send a clear message. Oh, and by the way, make it clear it's Russian. This is what happens to people who betray me, betray Mother Russia.
Does the implausibility of Russia's denials surprise you?
But by blatantly denying any connections and blatantly denying espionage, it's like, oh, really? I mean, the credibility of that kind of line is seriously in question.
But stretching credibility even further, in the Skripal case, the Russians claim the attempted murder was a plot by the British government to deflect from its waning popularity.
We know it very perfectly well from Soviet times. That's why, you see, it's nothing new.
So you're saying that by picking on Russia, Theresa May is giving herself a better chance politically?
Yes, yes.
It's that simple. So go and poison the Skripals.
The Skripals, well, they were kept in reserve for something like this. It's, well, actually a destiny of all traitors, finally. Once again, don't interpret this, my wording, as if I say they've deserved death.
I can't imagine I could get you to do anything,
Yes.
Ambassador, but do they deserve it?
Well, once again, I'm not a god. Skripal is of no interest for Russia any longer.
Russia's reputation for brazen acts and its Bolshevik denials are legendary, from the missile attack on flight MH17 to 14 suspected assassinations of dissident Russians and their associates living in Britain, including the most infamous and painful to watch, the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko with deadly radioactive polonium.
Once again, you see this allegation against Russia, the carrying out these murders, assassinations, are based on nothing.
But what you're saying was that this was not an assassination attempt by Russia.
Yes, maybe it was assassination attempt, but not by Russia.
Who by?
Who? It's not my authority. Yeah, I don't know.
And I guess you're going to tell me that Russia had nothing to do with the downing of MH17.
Yes, sure. Yes, sure.
For the record, the official MH17 investigation led by the Dutch found overwhelming evidence that it was a Russian attack, which killed 298 crew and passengers, including 38 Australians. But the Russian version is that the West was behind the downing of MH17 to paint the Russian separatists in Ukraine as terrorists.
Well, actually, the Dutch investigation is clearly skidding, like a car in the mud. Yeah, because they can't find anything.
When you speak to the families of the people who died on that plane, they say that Russia is dancing on the graves of the dead.
Oh my gosh, poor people. Well, I'm sorry about their losses, but there are nothing but, some muppets in this very dirty political game, regrettably.
An ever more isolated and angry Vladimir Putin is threatening dire global consequences as the West unites against him. Whether it's the Skripal poisoning, the mass expulsion of Russian spies from Western embassies, or swift military retaliation in Syria. And while it puts us in the crosshairs, Australia's opposition to Russia is born out of having much to protect.
There has been a long-standing issue about the perception of Australia not being a target for intelligence collection, not being a target for espionage. Why would somebody want to collect intelligence on Australia, is the line. Australia actually has world-class technology that other people want to steal.
Considering what a rich target we are, it would be prudent to say there are spies here still.
There's a very high probability that there are still spies in Australia, almost guaranteed.
No ambassador of any country would ever say that there are spies, intelligence officers in his embassy.
Which doesn't mean that they're not spies, right?
Yes. Yes. Well,
Just as Ambassador Logvinov won't be drawn further on espionage, nor will he be drawn to criticism of Australia, despite us standing up to Russia. Does it hurt to be so reviled? Does it hurt to be blamed for all these awful things?
It hurts. Yes, that's why, we don't feel abused. Once again, Russia is Russia. It's absolutely self-sufficient country. By the way, I'm ambassador of a foreign country here, and it's not my authority to judge the government and activity of the country I am accredited to.
You are forever the diplomat.
Well, maybe after nearly 40 years of diplomatic service has got your second nature.